Hey, the wetland filter's taking some time to get done. The workers wanted to take a day off, check on another project. So that video is going to take me some time until it's completed. It's about half complete right now. I thought today would be a really good video to do a coronavirus therapy video for those of you who don't have land. Um, just want to kind of feel what it's like to be in a system like this. I'll show you some of my less videotaped areas, less often videotaped areas. I tend to kind of focus on that top area quite a bit because I do most of my work there. It's kind of my permaculture zone 1 area, which is different than USDA agricultural zones. Those are about how warm your general area is, your city. The permaculture zones are more about your area of time where you spend, how often you interact. Zone 0 is like the house, your kitchen. Zone 1 is the area right around the house. Zone 2 might be a kitchen garden you get to maybe once a week or so. Zone 3, you might get there once a month or so just to check on it. Zone 5, once every 2 months or so. And then, or Zone 4. Zone 5 is completely wild. You're never out there. I would consider this area here my zone 4 to 5. This area I'm standing here is probably zone 4. I come down here once in a while. I plant oaks, maples, chestnuts in here, wild apples. I'll save seeds and I'll plant them in here. I've got my dock that I keep pulling out of the river as it falls down. I keep saying I'm going to fix it. It's just low on my priority. Do I want to fix that, or do I want to plant another 100 trees, 200 trees, work on a pond? You know what it's like. But it's a nice area. I cleared it out quite a bit when I first bought this place, and I just wanted to use it to hike around. It's a great source now for wildflowers. For example, we've got some wild flowering flowers. I actually don't even know what these are. I'll have to check. You can see I'm in my coronavirus outfit. But it's nice here. I go get the wood stumps down here, down the path quite a bit. This is a great area for nettles, actually. So nettles are a very healthy plant. They like fertile soil. I will actually come and harvest nettles once in a while from in here. Make nettle tea with them, which is a fertilizer I use. Anyways, enough rambling. I want this video to be more walking around nature. You guys can hear the birds. I'll give you updates on some plants, what stuff's waking up, and you can just kind of, feel like you're walking around on my land with me. And maybe it'll inspire you to one day go out and pick some land up and start planting trees. Oh, and look at this. Speak of the devil, here's one I planted. Whoop. Right here. Oh my goodness, I cannot control a camera today. Really nice seeing these come up. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's a willow that I cut. I often just trim my willows and just jam them in. Stuck some raspberries. I've got oaks and maples planted. Kind of walked through my land and planted trees everywhere. These little guys get very spooked. But he's using my birdhouse. See how close we can get to him. See him on top there? They never let me get too close. What was that? Maybe 20 feet. Still hear him though. I hear a bee. Where are you? Oh yeah, check this. Yes. Sorry, trying to find them there. Isn't that beautiful? When I say they love the hascaps, I'm not kidding. Everything's sleeping still, just waking up, and the hascaps are flowering. So my bush video I made yesterday, I didn't mention that, and I wish I did. It's probably the best thing about hascaps, is that they basically extend your season like a full month on the early side. And the bees are happy about that. He's just going to work. Off he goes to the next one. Another hascap. And they let me get so close. Inches away from them. Keeps wanting to focus on the grass behind it. How much bees do you guys want to watch? Let's go look at something else. That's 2 minutes of bees. Not sure if you can see the robin in there. Right in there. It's always kind of fun to see the living creatures just kind of scatter as I come down. One just landed a foot away from me and took off. Look at this. Sorry for swinging. There might be a bit of swinging around here. Am I getting that? You'll notice I leave my gardens, some people would say weedy. No, this is all food for pollinators. I have these insects and I have this life on my property because I leave all this up. So I get moments like this. Whoa. I get moments like this chasing butterflies around because I choose to garden differently. You know, some people might see this and say, oh, that's a weed patch. This is coltsfoot though. So this is coltsfoot, and if I don't want the coltsfoot, let me see, why am I so zoomed in? Let's zoom out. If I don't want the coltsfoot, I can just come by, I can pull it, right? And I can use the soil under my garden path to feed my dandelions here. Or these aren't dandelions. These are coltsfoot. These are what the coltsfoot flowers look like, actually. So, do I care if I have coltsfoot? I like coltsfoot. It's kind of fun to not care, you know? It's fun to not care. It's not a weed. It's only a weed because I don't understand it. When you understand it and you look into what this plant is good for, it has tons of uses. And it also is an indicator of what kind of soils you have. Coltsfoot actually likes good soil. It grows in wet areas. Wet areas are fertile soils. So if you have coltsfoot growing, that's nature telling you you're doing a good job, actually. Let's check out some of these and see how they're doing. Serviceberry's waking up. It's funny, I'll show you my bigger serviceberry. Remember, plants wake up based on temperature. So you can play around with where you put stuff. It's maybe a good learning opportunity. This serviceberry here is waking up later than the other ones. And I've shown some videos in the past of this area, and it gets very, very shady in the evening because sun comes up over here and it gets full sun all day, and then roughly around 4 o'clock at night it's behind this wall of cedars, and that's it. No more sun. It's got currently cold water bubbling up from the underground running through here. This is the idea with this place, is to have this thermal mass to mitigate the coldest day in the winter. I have this water that runs 24/7, which means by definition it's below, or it's above freezing, or just slightly below freezing, and doesn't have time to nucleate a crystal to grow ice off of. But it's very, very close to zero. So when it's minus 30 in the air, the soil is being kept warm from the water, relatively warm, right? So I'm pushing some zone on a few plants here. This is kind of my zone pushing area. So I've got figs growing up right there next to the onions, and I've got some peaches that were more zone 6 peaches, not zone 4. So I'm hoping this area is a microclimate that's mitigating the coldest day. But what I'm seeing here, both on the peaches that are just waking up, and on that serviceberry, is that it's cooler here. So that kind of makes sense, right? Because what the thermal mass and the water and the rocks, all that thermal mass, what it does is it moderates the temperature. It doesn't warm it, it moderates it. So it brings the hot down and it brings the cool up. And I'm seeing that response in my plants, which is nice to be able to take in that level of information that my system's feeding back to me. What this means is, and how I can apply it, is I can put stuff down here that might be able to survive the coldest day down here, because it'll be a little warmer than the coldest day up in my top land. But what it does mean is, this is probably a terrible place for very, very heat-loving plants, like tomatoes and peppers, for example. So, and melons and watermelons and stuff like that. So even though it's a thermally moderated area, and it should have an extended season, it's probably going to be slightly cooler there in the summertime. Tons of birds. It's just so nice. All right, what's going on here? Okay, hopefully what you can see here, it's always harder. I never know how much you guys can see, and I think the more I move the camera around, the less you can see. But you can see how my wild, haphazard, just jamming raspberry cuttings everywhere has played out here. This whole hill is very wild. All I did is plant raspberries in the off season. Didn't mulch it, didn't sheet mulch it. But the raspberries got up. They've established on this hill. So that's kind of cool. We've got some seed, some mullein from last year that I let grow. These things will grow thousands and millions of seeds. So we like that. So we're gonna smash them and spread the seed everywhere. Yeah. Got hazelnuts. So what are the hazels doing? The catkins have all fallen. So the catkins were here 2 days ago. There's still a few. So the catkins have all fallen, and I don't believe I see very many flowers. This is a problem with hazelnuts, and this is why you need a bunch of varieties of hazels. So what I'm seeing here is my catkins are the male parts, and they're gone. They're gone, and the wind pollinates the hazels but the flowers aren't up yet. So what I really need here is I need a hazelnut variety that's going to hold its catkins longer, and possibly a hazelnut variety that's going to flower very early, so they can kind of cross-pollinate and take care of each other. So I likely won't get very many hazels, if any, this year. That's disappointing, but it's good to see that feedback and learn from it. Another thing I would like to point out is that I was apparently terrible about getting raspberries. How did I miss so many raspberries? See, when I say I have so much food growing now that I can't get it all, I'm not joking. Look at all those raspberries that just went to waste. I mean, I guess not to waste, because I can spread them. I can rip them off and I can spread them. I can take them somewhere else even and spread them. But I did miss quite a few. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not cutting these down, these are floricanes, which means they'll flower at the fall, end of fall, and then they will also flower and fruit midway through the summer of the next season. So these should give me a good harvest still coming up in the summer. What you can do with these is, after they've given you their fruit on the first season, when they go dormant, cut them belt height. You cut them belt height for the next season. When they come up, the hormones change slightly and they'll branch more and they'll actually fruit and give you more fruit. I did that last year, didn't do it this year, so it'll be neat to compare. I mean, technically you saw how much fruit I'm wasting. I don't really need to do it, but if you want to improve your yields, that's what you can do. Wintertime come by, belt level, prune these off. It'll trigger a bunch of lateral growth. The berries will grow off that lateral growth. Here's the other hazel. Another hazel. There's a catkin, but there's no flowers yet. This one's holding a few catkins, so hopefully this one, I don't want to knock them off. Hopefully this one's catkins can pollinate that one, because that one's not doing much help to this one. So maybe that lower one there will have some hazelnuts, and then hopefully I can get a couple of them, because I want to give them to the squirrels and stuff, but I want to spread them. I don't want to eat them. I mean, I do, but I don't, because my priority's on expanding still. So we've got cherry. This is the cherry. If you've seen some of my other videos, I say, trust me, there's a cherry back in there, because you can't see it. I planted all these raspberries to hide the cherry, and it's neat. You see it in the fall and how easy it is to see everything. But then summertime comes by, you can't even see in here. And here's another cherry. So this is the pollinator for that one. So these are, one's a Bing and one's a black Tartarian. If anyone's wondering what the varieties are. The Bing is the tasty one, and the Tartarian is the sour cherry. You need a sour cherry and a sweet cherry to cross-pollinate. Okay, I wanted to, after I was talking about the strawberries over there, I wanted to walk over here and see my son's garden. My son took some of the I said strawberries, I meant raspberries. My son took some of the raspberry cuttings and plugged them. You can see the big ones, those were the raspberry cuttings. Bing, bing, bing. Right, 6 roughly, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This little guy over here, that was 1. This is what I mean by raspberries propagating. These are all raspberries coming up. These are all free raspberries. They've rooted down there, down here, there. This whole area is all raspberries, brand new raspberry cuttings, all coming up from the roots. This bed is going to be packed. So what do we got? Let's count them. Okay, so I counted roughly 52, and I probably missed a bunch because I only counted these 2 here, and there's actually more here hidden. And there's another one here hidden. So I want to say maybe even 70. 6 raspberries, first year, fruited, gave fruit. My son ate it. Next year, 70 plants. And look at this. Look how far away we are. Look how far away we are from this. I'll zoom out in a sec. And we've got more. We've got some out here. That might be this. No, I don't think so. I think that's from a bean. That's from a bush bean. And look, this is cool. I did not do this. I didn't do this. A cutting. My son did this. He must have seen me doing it. And he went out and took cuttings and put them in the ground. And they're growing. Wow, that's I'm a little emotional. That's actually really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. It's all his. Wow. Can I say how proud I am of that kid? It's really cool. It's really cool. So you guys bored yet or what? Or are you loving it? Are you loving it as much as me? This is elderberry cuttings. So these, I literally just trim the elderberry, because when you trim the elderberry, same thing if you were around when I was talking about the raspberries there a few minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. When you cut a plant and you cut the terminal bud off a plant, the hormones change in the plant and it'll stop growing vertically out and it'll start leafing out sideways. So for the elderberries, I prune them by basically deadheading them. So instead of one big stick going straight up, I'll deadhead it and it'll turn into a bunch of branches. But because the plant's not as big as it wants to be yet, those branches will all grow very vertically. So you kind of turn one vertical branch into like 3 or so. Great way to get your elderberries to bush out. So I did that. And then obviously you never waste anything. So I planted and jammed all these in the ground. The thicker the cutting, you really want to have a longer cutting because it's going to need more water. So I wouldn't want to just take a little 6-inch cutting of this. So this thing's a foot. It's like a foot to 14 inches long, and it's jammed 75% of the way down into the soil. Ideally, you can only push so hard, and then you shouldn't try to damage it too much. But look, it's taken. So this thing's leafing out. Now, I shouldn't celebrate yet, because one of the reasons it could be leafing right now is because there's stored moisture and sap in the wood itself. So the real test is going to be, do these things still have leaves, or are they still pushing out growth in maybe a month or two when the moisture in the stick is used up? So something you can also do is you can wax cap the top here. I didn't do that. I just cut and jammed. Plug, 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 plug everywhere. Let's go look and see if we can find another one. See, another one there. See, so they're doing pretty well. Look at this. Isn't that nice? Asparagus. Oh, so good. And when asparagus is fresh like that, it's so good raw. It's so sweet. It's unbelievably sweet. So I can pick these for about 3 weeks from now. So I'm gonna, check the date, Wednesday the 6th. I'm going to eat these for roughly 3 weeks, and then I'm gonna leave them alone, because then I have to let them fern out. I have to let them develop top mass so that they can get photosynthesis, so they can store it in the root and survive the winter. Oh my God. So everyone's starting their seeds, and I'm pulling out asparagus and eating it. That is why we go perennials. They just come up and they start going. That asparagus is going to feed me for the next 20 years, all because I decided to spend 50 cents and 2 minutes of work one day 4 years ago. That is repayment for work done. And if you didn't believe me, this guy is just going nuts. Still working. There you go. Could be a different one, but still going hard. Man, these guys work all day. Whoa. That thing was big. I just missed getting it on video. This is a pond I dug out, the first pond I ever dug out. Did it over a couple days on a weekend. Just took the soil out of here. This place was so boggy that I couldn't get my riding mower in here. So I figured I would dig out where it was the wettest and build up a path, and well, it worked really well actually. Surprisingly well. And now I have this water pond that is perfectly crystal clear with no plants growing in it. You can see this. It's basically filled with cress and duckweed. Very, very valuable stuff. I should actually be careful putting my hands in there, because I did find a giant snapper living in here last year, believe it or not. A snapping turtle. Like, it's just crazy how life finds these places. You build a habitat for life, and life will just find it. Alright, here on the swale, I don't show this very much either, because it's pretty much just coppice sumacs. And then I let some sumacs grow at the bottom, because I do want some sumacs. I cut a path in through the lower area so I can get up at it and plant some more stuff to stabilize the bottom of this hill. And on the corner is this really nice hazelbird. No, this is a bartnut. This is a bartnut. Hazelbird's a bush. This is a bartnut, which is part of the walnut family, juglones. So there's gonna apparently be some competition. I put it at the side, at the edge of this bed to minimize that, but also run the experiment. I want to know what I can grow in a Juglands guild. So we're gonna monitor that. We've got an apple and an autumn olive. So autumn olive there. Ground cover is completely wild plants. I've put some of the stuff that I like in there, completely wild. So, chop and drop example. Here is something that comes up all the time early in my zone. Alright, we've got garlic mustard. So this thing is very invasive. Very, very invasive. And I don't really care, because it shows up everywhere. It's early green growth. But what I can do here, I don't want to rip it. Let me just use this hand. Sorry about that. So I can just chop it and use it to feed the apple tree. Yeah, I've got a little bit of dusty soil from when I did some digging, so we'll cover that back up. And we'll use this. We'll use it to feed it. We'll break some of this apart. It's sticking up. This is just some lamb's quarter from last year and some tomatoes that hardened off. And I'll just get it down to the ground to maximize surface area. You can see I sneak little trees in everywhere. It's fun. We've got comfrey. Some astute people will have noticed the comfrey. Got more garlic mustard here. I did some digging out and adding stuff. So this looks like bare soil. It's really not. It's just a little bit of dust on top of it. You can see I've got charcoal pieces from my compost. This is actually pretty good soil here. And we'll just drop this down and use it to feed the other stuff. So you can use plants, like you can use plants to feed the system. Here's another good example. This here is water hyacinth. So this is incredibly invasive in some spots. But for me, it doesn't survive the winter. So even if it gets into water outside of my system, which it technically can't even here, but even if it did, it just dies. So it's not considered invasive here. But I plant them in my pond and they multiply like crazy. They take the nutrients out of the water of the pond, and then I can put them down and feed the soil life. And someone just joined us. On the butternut. See, I think they get used to me. He's a little closer. There's just so much activity on this land now. And he's talking to someone behind us. And Max is chilling here watching us. How cute's that, man? Just a dog being a dog. Just follows me around. Such a good little friend. Oh. You build it, they'll come. Where did you go? So I've been raking some of this out. There shouldn't be any leaves down there. Ideally, you know, you want to micromanage your pond, you probably want to take the leaves out. But I've been so busy, I wasn't even sure if I had to remove this pond based on the other one. So I might have to remove it, but then we got some frogs. It's neat. Life just finds it. Whoa, look at this rhubarb, man. This rhubarb is huge. This thing was just poking out of the ground a couple days ago. Like you can see, it's like heaving the leaves away as it comes up. Now I can already eat some of that. All right, we're back at the bee. That was 30 minutes ago, and this bee's still going on my hascaps. You hear him? Huh. What I wanted to look for is this. Exciting. So all in here, really good companion plant for strawberries is asparagus. They don't compete the same area. They're really made for each other. The strawberry grows on the side. The asparagus pokes up through it, no problem. No problem. And then the asparagus turns into a fern at the end of the season, and the strawberries cover the ground. Really, really nice pairing. Really nice pairing. These, when I saw that asparagus came up, I wanted to come check out all this. This bed, there's a ton of asparagus in this bed, and it's coming up too. Look right there. And they're thick enough to harvest this year. That's awesome. I'm gonna be eating so much. Last thing I want to show you is this serviceberry, the big one. So when I was talking about the one down by the river, that is just starting to break bud, barely. You can see this one's already well on its way. So this one's well on its way, making flowers. This thing's about to put on a show. Stay tuned. In a week from now, I'm going to show you this plant again. It's just gorgeous. Probably one of the showiest plants. actually, and on the same line of comparing to the wetland. Here's a peach. Remember, they wake up not based on their size or their age, they wake up based on temperature. So this one is already far more established in waking up. Come on. Far more established in waking up than the other one was. And you can cheat in this way. So say, let's take a lesson from that. Let's talk about apples and pears. Look at this. Perfect. So we've got a pear flowering. It is going to be -3 tonight. And it is going to be, see, it focused there. It's going to be -3 tonight, and it's going to be in the negatives every single day this week for at least another week. So this is a bad spot for a pear. I don't know if you guys know, those who've been watching my channel for a long time know, the first 4 trees I planted was peach, peach, pear, pear, and the biggest trees that I have. So I planted them around this area, and also because this area is pretty much full sun. I basically only lose sun for a couple hours a day when it gets behind those. And that's it, full sun other than that. Specifically for this pear, if you look at the other one, it's only just starting. One's a bosk, one is a Bartlett. This one I believe is a bosk. It doesn't say. It's all wiped off. I believe that's a bosk. That's a Bartlett. Bartlett's my favorite, so I put it in the best spot. That's why I kind of am thinking this is the Bartlett. And you know what? I did get a bosk from that one last year. They're a little harder, but they store longer. Okay, back to my point. This thing is leafing out and flowering sooner than that one. However, it's gonna freeze like in the next couple days. So if this thing goes full, right now it's kind of susceptible. If it goes full bloom, then any of those buds that are in full bloom at the time that it gets to be below 0, a really high chance of losing that. So I'm at very high risk of losing this pear crop for this season. So how can I cheat that? How can I use this information to change the way I plant my peaches or my pears? Well, I've kind of already done that, which is handy for this video, and I'll go show you what I mean down here. Okay, I don't know if you heard the apprehension in my voice because I didn't want to be proven wrong, but actually this is perfect. This here's a pear, and this is closer to these cedar trees. So this pear actually loses sun roughly around noon, and then it'll get it again roughly 6 or 7 o'clock at night. This area gets much less sun. Because of that, it also is quite a bit cooler. Because of that, this thing's only started to bloom. And additionally, this pear here is a little further ahead, but it's also only started to bloom. So this might give me a couple extra days, maybe an extra week, where these pears are not quite blooming. Hopefully the nighttime temperatures can get up above freezing, and then I don't lose the flowers. So if you have an early blooming pear or an early blooming apple, and you know that you're in a cold zone, you can cheat a little bit by giving it actually maybe a subpar spot that gets a little bit more shade. This will help keep it a little cooler in the early spring. It won't bloom out quite so fast. Maybe it'll bloom a week later. And you might just save your apples every single year for the rest of that tree's life. If you plant it in the sunniest, warmest spot, it's going to bloom out even earlier, and it's going to get nailed by those nights, and you're going to lose your pears and peaches, or pears and apples every single year, and you're going to be frustrated for your life. Every year you're going to be dealing with that. So just something to consider when you're planting early blooming fruit in a cold climate. Hopefully, if you made it through this whole video, which is probably about 30 minutes now, then you made your money's worth by that one comment. That one comment is worth the price of admission, which was $0. Some of the baby birches and cherries are waking up. That's just so nice to see. These things really had to struggle this year. Make it through those freezing winters. It's so nice to see. Actually, I'm seeing 100% success. Every single one of these is coming. Oh, this one had a rough year. It's basically dead, but look, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. They all made it. I'm not seeing one that failed. This area looks like just nothing but chips. Hopefully in a couple years it's going to be just a wall of green. You won't be able to see through it. Food, a wall of green food. Alright, so where am I? I'm at the end of this bed closest to the pond. Here's some sweet anise hyssop. It's coming up. Thing smells like anise licorice. I hate that smell, but the birds love this. This bed's on a bit of a downhill, so rains are kind of always pulling the edge of this bed down. So I put some logs just to catch some of that rainfall. You can see how there's a bit of erosion happening here because this here is an asparagus. So this was a big asparagus. It's not coming up, so I'm pretty sure it's dead. And these are the roots. They've been exposed, which isn't good. This was covered. We'll try to cover it again, but I'm pretty sure this thing did not make it. When the roots get exposed like that, the plant just sees so much cold in the cold. It's really bad if you're in a cold area for the roots to get exposed like that. This here is a mulberry that I planted last year, and it looks pretty rough. Not gonna lie. We'll see. Looks like it's still alive. Down low, up top, it looks like it got winter burnt. It does not look good. So, this is its first year. It just experienced its first Canadian winter. Welcome to the big leagues. If it lives, it should be pretty good. I think it'll live. Often what happens on those first years is exactly that. The plant goes through a super rough period in the first year, survives the winter, and then it gets quite hardened off by it. This whole front of the bed is asparagus all the way down, so I really am going to come back and double check for more root exposure. Little oak, little baby oak. It's going to be massive. Here we go. There is another exposed asparagus. Sad times, sad times. So lesson learned that you get out and you learn these lessons while you're out here. Lesson learned, if I'm going to build a bed on contour, and there's going to be a slope to the land, I can expect the downhill side to kind of get washed. I need to put in some kind of log retaining wall to capture and trap and hold any soil that wants to get washed away with the rains, and especially if I plant stuff in there. Like, look, I'm seeing signs of this everywhere. See, so it's coming off, and I'm sure it'll stabilize as the soils get more compacted. This bed, believe it or not, used to be like 4 feet tall. Like literally 4 feet tall. It's down to like 12 inches maybe. Maybe not even. We've got another anise hyssop there. It's coming back. I can cut off all those dead stalks now. I wasn't exactly sure how it regrew, so I wanted to leave them all. So I can cut those off now. And I've got some seeds. So I can spread these. See, that's kind of nice. So I can take all these and I can get some more anise hyssop. This is a great pollinator. Sorry for spinning. We are going to give some to this border with these hazels. We're going to spread some of this. Maybe get some anise hyssop growing in there. See, that's it. 2 seconds. Not the best way. I could collect the seed. I could start it. But my goal's not efficiency. My goal, not efficiency per seed. My goal is efficiency per time. So that was very easy to do. Here we've got, I believe this is Bartnut, or is this, oh no, this is, yeah, this is Hazelberts. So this is Hazelnut Bartnut hybrid. And I planted it here now, I remember. I planted one there and one here to wind pollinate with the other hazels. So these two are alive. No genetics on them yet, no catkins. Oh, and another one, 3 of them. See, I forget what I plant all the time. 3 of them. So no genetics yet, no catkins yet, but hopefully in the future, they will really help pollinate each other. And Max is eating something. That's great. What are you eating? He's just eating a stick. So here's a glimpse of the wetland filter. So they removed some of these big rocks over there. If you guys remember those big rocks, they're going to do something else with them. And they're going to make this wetland off the side. It's going to really look like this bay off of the pond. Should look great. Everything's exposed and liner and ugly, but man, we're about 2 weeks from this project being finished. So I hope you appreciated this video. This is a coronavirus therapy video for those of you who can't build a food forest yet, but are passionate about it. When I got into this, you know, I got so into it that I was watching non-stop food forest tours, videos, and I would have loved to have something like this. So I'm trying to produce for you guys something that I would have loved to have been able to learn off of somebody in my zone, in just a cold climate. Because everything out there is tropical. It's all Australia, it's all Costa Rica, it's all California, Florida. Very, very few Canadians are doing this. Very, very few cold climate people are doing this. And by doing this, I don't mean planting stuff, I mean making videos about it and filming bees on their haskell's. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I gotta cut it now. It's gonna take me a long time to upload this already. I hope you enjoyed it. Lyndon is coming. I'm gonna walk around for a bit more. I've split my days at work into evenings, nights, which is kind of nice, just for this week anyways. But it's kind of nice because it lets me get out here when the birds are singing to me. Thanks for watching.